Hello, everyone. This is Senator and Dr. Saud Anwar. I am here today with one of my friends. I have to give you a little bit of a background story. So I was talking to my mother and she said, you know something, you have to meet this individual. I said, what person are you talking about? She said, this is this amazing senator in the state of Vermont that I want you to meet. And I said, oh, I know a Vermont state senator, a recent state senator. And she said, and I said, how do you know about her? And why do you want me to meet her? So she said, well, her name is Kesha Ram, and she is the great granddaughter of Sir Ganga Ram, and he's such a historical figure. You just need to know him and meet him. So at that very moment, I said, well, Kesha is a good friend of mine. I've known her for 4 years, and I've been in touch with her, and I've been looking at how good work she's been doing in Vermont. She said, no, 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 you're just making it up. I said, okay, I'm going to do an interview with Kesha and we will have a conversation. So this is for not only my mother, but also for a lot of other people in various backgrounds from South Asian descent who actually know of a superhero, historical superhero, Sir Ganga Ram, who actually made a difference in the lives of thousands and thousands and thousands of people in the last many generations. So Kesha, you are a state senator in Vermont. I am, of course, we have been good friends for 4 years, but I'm honored that we are going to be having a conversation. And in this particular context, I will introduce you also as the great granddaughter of Sir Ganga Ram. So welcome.
Oh, thank you. Well, and namaskar ji to your mother. You know, I grew up with a similar circumstance of my father always saying, do you know this person or not? You know, and it's really nice when you can surprise them and actually have a relationship with the person they think you should be in touch with. But I am honored that my great-great-grandfather has made such a difference in the lives of people in your family and in your community and circles that we can have this conversation. It really means a lot to me.
Of course, and for the viewers and my friends, so Sir Ganga Ram was a historical architect and an engineer whose footprints and fingerprints are all over South Asia. A lot of good work that's happening. I can tell you one of the top universities or call schools and subsequently Center for Higher Education, HSN School and College in Lahore, was actually built by your great-grandfather. And that's something that has actually been a institution for thousands of people and an institute of very higher learning. And I understand that there is a Sir Ganga Ram Hospital in India, in Delhi, and there's one in Lahore in Pakistan as well. And that was also founded by your great-grandfather, which has been, both of these places have been institutions for great learning for physicians in that entire South Asian descent. So I'm just starting up of all the things that he had done. So tell me, when you were growing up, what were the things, and when was the first time you learned that you were a part of a historical figure?
That's a great question because so much of it is wrapped up in the painful feelings around partition. And, you know, we both know from different perspectives that there was a lot of pain, heartache, violence, mass exodus on both sides of what became a new border in 1948 between Pakistan and India. And it was a long time that it sort of unfolded in my family. Here is who your great-great-grandfather was. Here is what he did. This is why we've never gone to visit Lahore. So I would get bits and pieces as I was growing up. I believe in high school is when my aunt gave me a copy of Sir Ganga Ram's biography, A Man for All Seasons. Some folks, you know it as a preeminent biography of Sir Ganga Ram. And I have to admit, I worked really hard to get through it. I read the whole thing, but it's very much a catalog of, you know, places and events that are still really abstract for me. And what would be incredibly meaningful, I've been to the Wagah border with my father and some uncles. We saw things on the Indian side of Punjab that helped me understand their later life there before my father came to the United States and then called for my grandparents to join him. But I'm still piecing together, the stories and the understanding of his legacy. When I became a new legislator in Vermont, I served in the House first, and I started when I was 22. And I went back to India in 2010. That's when we took the trip to Punjab and saw a lot of things that I hadn't seen before. And I talked to a great aunt who unfortunately has since passed away. And she said to me, you're not the only politician in the family. And I said, well, that's a relief. As we know in South Asian circles, it's not very honorable to be in politics. And she said, your great aunt is Baroness Srila Flather in the UK, the first South Asian woman to become a part of the House of Lords. No one had ever told me this before. And as you may know, her father was a viceroy in the British Army, and she helped to create a monument to all of the Commonwealth soldiers who never got credit for their role in World War II. So I went to meet my Buaji, my Aunt Srila Flather, and learned a lot more about Sir Ganga Ram. In fact, just today, I received pictures of, and I should try to send you one if I can, over whatever technology I'm on right now, but it's a picture of Sir Ganga Ram's robe from a Chinese dignitary that he received at the turn of the century. It's gorgeous, and it's in possession from my great aunt, who's not doing well. She stopped going to the Lords in person. It's a really unsafe time in the UK, but she's also one of the older members of my father's generation. So we're losing people of that generation who have the stories. And in fact, I keep getting buzzed from a woman named Poonam Ayub, who is doing a updated biography of Sir Ganga Ram, and realized that one of Sir Ganga Ram's descendants is in Vermont. At the same time, a lot of other people have realized that. I sometimes don't realize how great his reach is and how much it means to people that I exist, and I'm a public servant, and somewhere in me, it are a lot of the same values and principles that he brought to his leadership.
Yes. I can tell you, as I was growing up, I would hear about, because these are like parts of life in Pakistan, where you say, oh, such and such person is trained at Sir Ganga Ram Hospital, and so there's a name of the hospital after him. And then similarly, people would talk about how one of the first irrigation project that was started in what we in Pakistan called Sahiwal. And then there was a place which resulted in irrigation of thousands of acres of agricultural land, and in a very difficult time in history. So that's why there's so much of value and respect around that name of your great grandfather. It's fascinating. So when we talk about partition, and then everybody, this was for the people who may not know this, this was the biggest migration of human history. The number of people who moved from one part of the world to another part of the world simultaneously was the largest that has ever happened. And it was resulted in a lot of unfortunate things that have happened, and that may not necessarily represent the people from both sides. But I can tell you from my grandfather, it's a similar story. So here your great grandfather's from Lahore, and they're moving to another place. And my grandfather was actually moving from the Hoshiarpur area to Lahore, and then to Pakistan, and in Karachi. And while this was happening, his name was he's called Babuji. His name was Rana Fazal. So Babuji, actually, he had started a school to help children's education there. And when he came over, the people were thinking of closing the school down, and he said, no, you cannot. It is not for any specific group. It was for anyone and everyone. So he has started to send money from his new home to his old home, and then sending the money to make sure that the school remained viable and functional. And that actually touched so many people that the school is still functioning till this day. from the 1940s on till 2020, the school is still functioning in that part. And somebody who was visiting there actually saw his picture there, and they said, "Look, your grandfather's picture is there, and then you should go and visit." And in the same way, when we were talking, you're saying you want to visit the Lahore area and then be able to visit the places, and this would be a superb thing to be able to have people go from one part to the other, and see the history, and see the history of what people did in that. We were looking at some pictures earlier, Kesha, and one of the picture was
Yeah.
in front of the statue of your great grandfather. Tell me more about that, and then how did that feel when you were there, in and where was it?
Yeah, and I'm learning here up here in Vermont, as you can appreciate a little bit in Connecticut, my internet connection just got unstable. So tell me if there's any delay, and I'll repeat myself. So, I think I would start by saying, and I think it's so important as well in the moment we're in American history, where there's so much strife and division and fighting, and just feeling unheard by the other side, right? That, when my aunt and my father were small children when they fled Lahore and went to the Indian side of what became the Indian side of Punjab. And I think the memories are so painful for them that I always associated Sir Ganga Ram's legacy with a lot of loss and a lot of feelings that his memory had been erased in the Lahore region and in Pakistan, and they needed to rebuild it with Sir Ganga Ram Hospital in Delhi, etc. And what over a few moments in social media, it started, I think there was a birthday that someone in Lahore, a past birthday, maybe the 109th birthday of Sir Ganga Ram at one point, and they put it on Twitter, and I said, "Thank you," from his great granddaughter. And then this recent moment where people saw the picture of me in Shalwar Kameez in the legislature being sworn into the state Senate, and said, "That is Sir Ganga Ram's great granddaughter," that I've seen people mostly in Lahore and in Pakistan say, I pray for you and your great grandfather. He's the reason I'm a doctor or an educator or am educated myself at all. He's the reason we have, modern comforts that we still enjoy. His name is, here's his name here, here's a statue of him here. And that story of great memory that he, as a figure, transcended ethnic or political divisions because he got things done for the people. And you can't wipe that away. You can't wipe away the feeling of getting, the access to resources and supports you need to better yourself, to realize your full potential, and to help your community. And that was his driving force. It wasn't about if you were Muslim or Hindu or Sikh or anything else. It was not about who you were, but that you deserved a chance. And that, as you may know, the only kind of lore we heard growing up is that he read in the lamplight, in the streets of Lahore to learn how to become a great engineer and a great civil servant. And he didn't have anything handed to him, so that has really been passed down in our family as well, that you can always read a book and you should always treat knowledge as sacred. You can always make yourself better. So I can barely remember your question now, but I feel like it's this idea that, your life is really what you make of it. It's, as you may know, it's quite sad. What I understand is that he was on an agricultural mission to London when he passed away. But we're in the midst of a pandemic where people need basic access to food and food systems. They need hospitals. They need access to whatever means they can continue their education. And to think that, we had relatives, we had people we're descended from at the turn of the last century, essentially, into the mid-century, who were so focused on justice and education and making sure everyone had those opportunities. I think sometimes in the US and in Western society, there is this belief that we have the market cornered on women's empowerment or making sure young people, are safe and cared for. But here were some great leaders in history in South Asia who knew the importance of colleges for women and schools for all children. And, it's a great gift that we have in common.
Very well said. I think what resonates with me as well, just like you just mentioned, is the fact that what we do for our fellow humans, not for a fellow tribe, but fellow humans, is the
Mhm.
human tribe, probably is the way to look at it, is what is long lasting. And I think your great
Mhm.
great grandfather has probably shown that by building institutions which were beyond one group or one community, one group of people, one faith, one ethnicity. It was for each and every person in that community to make a difference. That has actually
Mhm.
transcended and will live far, far longer than even our lives because of that work. And
Exactly.
hopefully through his example and the example of your great grandfather and my grandfather and others, we can actually do similar things that would actually last far longer than our lives, because that is what we have learned, is to give back unconditionally. And that's, I think, one of the legacies that touches me about your grandfather, great grandfather as well. So
Yes.
you have some beautiful pictures, and I'll put them up as well for us to look at. One is, of course, you are with your grandmother, and it was
Mhm.
a very very cute moment at the time. And I know your grandfather was. You were 4 years old when your grandfather passed away.
Yes, yeah, unfortunately, my grandmother, my Dadi ji, would always say, you waited for us. They moved from India, from Osharpur, which was their last home in India, to Santa Monica, California, where I grew up, the day before I was born. And so I had them in my life. I had my Dadi ji in my life for a long time. My Dada ji, unfortunately, passed away of a heart attack when I was 4. And I just had never gotten the chance to know him as well, hear his stories. He was so loving, um, you know, but I know there was also a lot of pain because he had quite a life built up in Lahore before the partition. And I think, one of the interests, my mother's side is Jewish. And, there's this question, I think, in great conflicts in history: when do you leave, right? When do you give up on a place you love and you consider your home because it's no longer safe because so much has been lost already? And, I think about that a lot because on the Jewish side, the start of the threat and Jewish persecution, and they said, we're out of here. We're leaving Kiev. We're gone, getting on ships to South Africa and the United States. And on the Indian side, my grandfather just did not want to let go, and he never quite was able to let go. It was very hard for him. I think it took a lot out of him. But I think more than anything, it was that feeling of, we have factories, we have a commitment, we have people who depend on us, and we don't want to see that lost. We don't want to let those people down. So, while I remember him being very sweet and wonderful, this is Sri Ram. His father was Balak Ram, whose father was Sir Ganga Ram. Um, there was that feeling of immeasurable loss that he could never sort of regain. And I think, Southern California is not a bad place to live the remainder of your life. But a part of their hearts never left Lahore.
Yes, and of course you met our soon-to-be Vice President Kamala Harris as well, and I love the picture that both of you had. And tell me about your feeling when you see somebody of South Asian descent, Indian descent, who is going to be the Vice President.
Right. Well, similar to your story with your mother, we grew up. So my Indian father, my Punjabi father, and my Jewish mother ran an Irish pub in Los Angeles. That's where I grew up. So, I think it was one thing my father always wanted us to meet politicians in our area. It could be Maxine Waters, could be people he thought they really speak the truth and they aren't afraid of anybody. And then the real joy for him was that there was someone like that who also had a very complicated life story like ours, in Kamala Harris. And so I remember being in high school and he said, I've gotten the card of some people, in Kamala Harris's office, who at that point was I believe, the state's attorney in the Bay Area in California. He said, oh, you have to talk to people in her office. You have to get to know this Kamala Harris woman. And so from high school onward, I had been following her career. And when she decided to run for president, I had already tracked her down at various events like, the DNC, or in that particular picture, it was Indian Impact event. It was a national gathering in 2018. But then when she announced for president, I very quickly got in touch through the Indian community with her team and became her state chair in Vermont. And in fact, her husband, first gentleman, soon to be first gentleman, Doug Emhoff, was planning a trip to Vermont to file her paperwork there. And I was going to take him around when her campaign was suspended. So I had the deep sense that she had proven herself and her value enough to either be the vice president or the attorney general. And I think it was very smart of soon to be President Biden to pick her as his vice president. And I'm thrilled she will be in the White House, breaking so many barriers.
Yes. And the other thing that the two of us share is we are both Bernie fans. So
yes. Yes, exactly. It was this year, I think we were all given a little bit more freedom or leeway, I should say. I supported Bernie in 2016 in his presidential bid and was very, very proud to see him get so far in that. I really felt like, Kamala would need some more help to stay in the campaign, being a new contender on that level. I just could not, I could not miss the moment to really see a woman and a woman of color and a woman with immigrant parents in the White House, because it is such a different and needed perspective that she'll bring, particularly in this moment in history. So I didn't get as much flack from Bernie's team. And of course, once she was, out of the race, I stayed in touch with all of the presidential campaigns just to say, as we discussed before, why don't we slap on some t-shirts and build a playground and feed people and just help people right now? That is what people are looking for from the next president. And I think they'll really get that from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
And it's so much needed. We could not have asked for this team of people to be able to help out in a time like this. So as we come to a closure, I wanted to just also mention a couple of things. So today is my father's birthday. He passed away in 2011, but he would talk about Sir Ganga Ram as well to us, about the work that the Sir Ganga Ram had done. So he would have been very happy to listen to some of the things, and would have been very happy about the fact that we are interacting and we are friends. So any words of wisdom and the message for the people who are going to listen to your words?
Well, all I'll say is we both come from this lineage where you really focus on the people and meeting their needs and not worrying about who they are, how much money they make, what their ethnic or cultural or racial background is. And, it's funny because my great aunt, Srila Flather, who's in the House of Lords in the UK, when they told me who she was and I went to go meet her, she was very open about having me come visit her. I knew she was a member of the Conservative Party who had left and become non-aligned, which is their term for independent in the UK. And so I went to go meet her, and right away we took to each other. I could tell we were from the same family. We just couldn't stop talking and sharing stories and ideas. And we might disagree on a few things politically, but then she took me to the Parliament building out of session. And right from the gate, talking to the security guard about how his knee surgery had gone, talking as we got into the hallway to the staff about their significant other, going in the cafeteria to find the people, that fed her every day. And I just realized we are so similar. We must be from the same family. I think that spirit of wanting to know the people that you're working with and that make your job possible, regardless of how much society may treat their role as less significant. I carry that with me into the State House, that the people who deliver our mail and cook our food and make sure our State House is sparkling clean, those are the people who are doing the real work. And I don't think Sir Ganga Ram lost sight of that as well, that he wanted farmers and frontline workers like nurses and doctors to have what they needed to be successful. And so, I just carry that with me a lot, that we like to think, politics is important, but it should be in service to the other work of, making sure we have a functioning society and families that are taken care of. And so, we both come from people who remembered how important the arts and culture and poetry and having food and safety are to people. And so, I honor that in you. I hope we can work together. What people need to see is cooperation across states. And so I'm just so grateful. I'm really grateful to your mother too. And I know this is probably a bittersweet day for her, knowing that she's lost your father now. 10 years ago, this is the 10th anniversary of that. So my best to your mother, my deepest prayers and blessings to your family. And just to know, that we share that special place. I hope I can go with you and with others at some point, especially COVID being the big challenge right now. But it would mean a lot to me to let people know there that there's still public servants out there who bear the name of Sir Ganga Ram and won't let his legacy die.
Well, I'm looking forward to that opportunity after this pandemic. I think we need to have a trip to Lahore and then also to the area in Punjab, in Indian Punjab, and then we visit the two sites and then look at the heritage of our ancestors. So, and hopefully
Exactly.
people can see each other as people and humans, and bring about the same care, respect, and love that has always been a part of the history, and let the politicians not divide us, unite us. Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Stay well. Take care.